There was just so much.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
If you're a Gen X woman like me, you'll know the name Alison Brahe. And if you don't know her name, you'll definitely know her face. And of course her hair, which was long and blonde and just glorious, frankly. If you picked up a magazine anytime in Australia in the late 80s or early 90s, there's a very good chance that Alison was on the cover. If you were waiting at the checkout in the supermarket, there she was. Walked past a newsagent, there she was again. She was very much the it girl who went on to marry the it boy of the time, a big hunk of a spunk TV host and actor called Cameron Daddo. But what happens when a teenage supermodel grows up? From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, a podcast where people speak candidly about their lives and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. I'm Mia Friedman. Even if your beauty and your body aren't the way that you make a living, getting older can be challenging for women in so many ways. Our faces change, and so does our shape. But the changes that are most confronting are often the ones that nobody can see from the outside. For Alison, whose identity was first rooted to how she looked as a model, and then her role as a wife and mother to 3 kids, it's been a shock to grapple with what happens when your kids grow up and stop needing you and you get older. And at the same time, you're navigating a tsunami of changes in your hormones that impact every aspect of your life, from your weight to your sex drive. Many of us, including Ali and me, have internalised a ton of negative stuff about what it means to be in our 40s and 50s, and they're things that we are trying slowly to unlearn. Ali has written a new book called Queen Menopause that is part memoir and part manifesto. And to kick off our conversation, I chose a little bit from the book that was actually a journal entry that she made about 5 years ago. Here's Ali.
Wept today. Wept for my body that no longer gives life. Wept for my friendships that no longer surround me. Wept for my happiness that seems to elude me. Wept for a life that is shattered and meaningless. What slippery slope am I on? I don't understand my life right now. It's like everything I've been keeping at bay has caught up with me. Age, wrinkles, fat. God, I'm so fat. Can't believe how my body looks. I don't feel like me. My face is so ugly too. So droopy and sad and angry all at the same time. I see photos and barely recognize myself. There's nothing left of the beauty of my youth. Is this what menopause does? It's a cruel bitch if it does. Can't wear the clothes I want anymore. Anything that's tight around the middle looks ridiculous. Jeans look dumb. All my beautiful dresses are looking crap too, because they look like maternity dresses now. I feel so sad and so lost. The depression wants to take me under so badly, it's all I can do to not let it drown me. It pulls at me to stay in bed, to not move, not reach out, to stay in my pajamas all day while it tells me I'm worthless, ugly, dumb. I bounce around from doctor to doctor trying to get some help. I get some help and the darkness pulls me under right again. I feel like I should walk away, run away, go somewhere on my own, like Ireland, and live in a tiny cottage and breathe. Neck is hurting again, the disc is beginning to bulge. Great, yet another physical signal that I've got to deal with. Don't talk about it. I can see Cam roll his eyes when I have another ailment. So boring, so ugly, not fun, not interesting, and so dumb. So old and ugly, ugly, ugly. Need help. Really, really need help. But what? How?
How do you feel reading that now, 5 years later, almost?
Yeah, it's still really...
I nodded my head off while you were reading that.
Yeah, it's not that it's hard to read, but it's still very powerful to read for me because it was so dark at that time. I never thought twice about putting that journal entry in because I felt like that was my darkest moment, and I thought that was the most important part to share in a lot of ways because it did get so dark for me. But I'm also really grateful that I just go, okay, you've come out of that space now. So I can look at it and go, yep, you were there, you owned it, you said it, and now you're through it. So I feel like the forest is behind me now, which is good. Yeah.
When I was getting ready to come in today for our conversation, I was thinking about you getting ready, and I was thinking about you're like everybody's high school boyfriend in that so much of how we feel about ourselves is tied up in you, even though you don't know us. It's a little bit like how everybody had such strong feelings about the Friends reunion and all of those shows coming back. And it's a no-win situation for those women really, because it's shocking if they look the same age as we do, because in some ways they're frozen in time. And it's also shocking if they've had a huge amount of surgery and they look nothing like us. How do you carry that weight?
Well, I didn't for such a long time when I lived in America, and I felt really good about not carrying that weight.
Yeah.
And it was really freeing. I've really had to, and I thank God I've got this fabulous girlfriend here. She's super, super cerebral. So she just talks really plainly and blankly to me, because when I first met her, I was really, and I think I even mentioned this to you like years ago when we did a podcast together, that I had sort of had this lingering shame about being a model and this lingering shame about growing old, because I was going to disappoint people. And I was really nervous about that. And when people would come up to me and go, oh, I had you on the cover of my, high school textbook and on my wall, and this part of me almost wanted to go, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, why would I apologize for that? Why would I apologize for who I am now because I'm somehow going to disappoint a stranger? So it was this weird mindset that really took me by surprise when I moved back. And she just kept on saying, you don't get it. Like, you hold a really special place for women in their teenage years. It takes people back to a really softer, gentler, lovely time in their lives. Yeah. And you just need to know that they're not looking for you to be anything but who you are. And the more I understood that, the more I was so touched and so grateful for any woman now that goes, I loved you when I was in my teen years. I had a gorgeous lady say, I went through my first period with you on the cover of a magazine, and now I'm going through menopause with you. Yeah. And it just made me want to cry. I felt so honored to hold this place in that certain age group of women that know me from then. And it's like, yes, let's all be in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause together, and let's move through it together, and let's talk the shit out of it and laugh about it. So now I feel really honored by the weight of it. I don't feel like it's a burden as I did. But writing the book has really helped me understand that. So yeah, that wisdom of growing that has really, really changed for me.
It's interesting what you said about you feel shame about having been a model and then also shame about getting old. And you write in Queen Menopause, some days I'm still recovering from being a model. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's believing in that only I have value of what I look like. And that still sticks for me sometimes. Like, I can still feel that place in me that thinks no one's going to care what I have to say. No one's going to take my advice, or no one's going to ask me about what I think. It's still about what I look like, or being compared to what I look like when I was 16 or 17. So it still tinkers around in my brain. Look, I went into modelling very insecure anyway. It's not like modelling changed that for me. Yeah, it's not that modelling made me more insecure. I was a very insecure kid, but it just created a veneer of what people liked me for. And that's what became difficult for me as I aged. What are they going to like me for now if I'm not the pretty 17, 18-year-old girl? So yeah, that's where I was still holding on to that.
You say you were an insecure teenage girl, but is there any other kind? You and I both have them.
So true. Yeah.
I don't know any others.
Yeah.
And also, is there any woman in the world who doesn't receive the message that her value is tied intrinsically to her looks?
I think maybe in native cultures, maybe in those cultures where you're aging and it's held up as something absolutely fabulous.
Imagine that.
I know, where it's like, yes, our elders, our wise women, where it's all about that and they're exalted for their age. But Western society, hell no.
I always wanted to be a model like every girl who read Dolly, and I couldn't be one, and I tried to be one for a hot minute. And I'm now so relieved because I was also a very insecure teenage girl. And it's like putting steroids on that insecurity.
Yeah.
Because it's like you already are so self-conscious. You think that everyone's looking at you, and then everyone actually is looking at you, and your worth is literally tied to your looks and your weight.
Yep.
At a time when that stuff is already so hard.
Yeah, when your skin's breaking out, it's like you turn up to a job, it's like, oh, God, we've got to cover pimples now.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It would be embarrassing to turn up knowing I had acne. Whereas, it's embarrassing enough to go to school with acne.
Yeah.
But you got to show up for a job
with
acne.
adults.
So, with adults, exactly. So, yeah, it's a whole other layer. I'm just so grateful, though, that I'm not a model in today's age with social media. Thank God, because I think that would have added 5 extra layers of insecurity.
But isn't everyone a model in today's social media age? In that sense, haven't many women and girls taken that power back because they're the ones taking the photos and putting them out there as influencers or…
Yeah, as long as they feel they're doing it. My concern is the reason behind what they're doing it. If they're doing it for the likes and they're doing it for the comments, that worries me because then you become your own worst enemy in a lot of ways because you're still like reaching outside of yourself to be liked, and now you're reaching out to strangers and you're the one. Yes, you're controlling it, but, whereas – my daughter who's not a model, she does post and I know what she's searching for. I'm like, I know what you're looking for, honey. And it's not there. But it's such a common theme, as you say, amongst the teenage girls. So
I have a friend, a guy whose daughter started modelling a few years ago, and I just sounded like such an old grandmother, but I was like, do not let her, just don't. And he couldn't understand it. And there's an idea on the outside that somehow if you are a model and you get even one job or even join an agency, that somehow that external validation, that's it. You have been bestowed with this supreme confidence and you have been externally. But actually that's just the beginning, and it's a fast track to low self-esteem, isn't it?
Yeah. Unless that you're somehow, as I say, but I was going to say, even if you probably go into modelling with great confidence, I think
it'll be eroded.
Still beats you down in so many ways. And I think, look, Australia has probably got it. I mean, I know the Australian industry for me was much gentler and kinder than the American industry when I tried to model over there.
What was that like?
It was a nightmare. It was just awful because at least here I would show up and I would know someone, either makeup, hair, photographer who was kind and who would talk to me.
And you were also top of your game here. So you were a big fish in a small pond in Australia.
In the modelling industry. But over there I was just absolutely scraping the bottom of the barrel. I was no one. And that was just weird experience to go from there to there. But yeah, I think that, when people say to me, oh, my daughter wants to get into modelling, I would be like, okay, well, wait till she's way older for a start, way, way older, and think of it as a hobby. It's a hobby. It's not a job. It's a hobby.
It's not a job.
And make sure she's got her self-worth in a good place before she even thinks about it, and then be there for the castings, be there, talk to her about it, see what she's going through emotionally, because
the rejection
because you're not pretty enough.
Yeah, or skinny enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the worst thing a teenage girl can
literally
hear.
Yeah.
That's all they want to hear is the opposite to that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it can be a really hard road to travel.
Yeah. The perception that it fills your cup of self-esteem, but in actual fact it drains it very rapidly.
Yeah, very, very rapidly.
Yeah. So when you went to the States And you talk in the book, and we've been talking a lot here at Mamamia about the 3 ages of women: maiden, mother, crone.
Yes.
All of which are horrendous words. I mean, mother's a fine word, but, in terms of identity.
Yeah, but crone?
Yeah, crone is awful. But mother, I want to ask you, for the middle phase of your life, you were sort of an alpha maiden in terms of modelling, marrying Cam, the posh and becks of Australia in many ways. And then mother was the big chunk in the middle. You always wanted to be a mother.
Yep.
How did you find going into that quite traditional role, because you moved to America for Cam's career?
Yeah.
Your career pretty much fell over when you left Australia and you started that motherhood phase.
Yeah.
How was that for you and your identity?
It was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous. And I write that in the book, the moment that I went to my modelling agency in LA for the last time, and the freedom that I felt was so amazing. I just thought, I don't have to look like anything any more than just myself. I don't have to show up to castings looking like this and feeling like that and skinny like this and fitness like that. And I felt so much freedom to be taken out of that. Well, I took myself out of the industry, and gratefully so. And I would drive by Pacific Highway and watch the modelling shoots on Santa Monica Beach, and never did I miss it. Never did I want to be down there. I just thought, you poor girl. It's 10 degrees outside and you're in your bikini being told to think warm. And I'm just like, oh. And I just felt so, so happy to be out of that place where, and I was never forced into it, but out of that place where I could just relax and be me, and then head into, as you said, something that was something I'd wanted my entire life, which was motherhood. And it was everything that I had wanted and more and more. So it was the absolute most exciting time of my life to get pregnant.
When you stopped being a model and became a mother, was that your first experience of the gaze moving off you? And it sounds like that was a relief at that stage.
Yeah, look, it was. Look, the gaze was gone when I hit LA anyway, because no one really knew who I was over there. So
that must have been an adjustment.
Yeah, it was great. Like, it was.
You didn't like. There was nothing about the gaze that you liked.
No, I didn't.
That fed you.
I didn't. I really, really didn't. Yeah. Because while there was some lovely, I had a lot of lovely things happen with asking for autographs and stuff like that. But again, that deep insecurity in me, if I would get gangs of girls, which I did, following me down the street, calling me names and saying, you think you're all hot shit and you're not that pretty. And
no.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
But you were so pretty. I would have taken those girls on.
That was a common occurrence. And that was so destructive for me. Yeah, was really,
it's
really
like
hard.
real life trolling.
Yeah,
like in
totally.
Person. I didn't think that happened.
Totally. And that's why I think, my God, if I had have been on social media, imagine the trolling then. But yeah, so I used to have girls follow me and yell shit out. I'd be in a restaurant eating and I'd see girls making fun of the way that I ate or how I was sitting and mimicking me. So I was so glad I remember being in LA and sitting there at a restaurant one time, and I said to Cam, no one's staring. No one's looking over here. This is so lovely. This feels so good to me. So
Did it feel good to him too? Because he also went from being a big fish to a small fish.
He did. Look, I think he still was very much part of the game. That was the thing.
Yeah.
He was there to get his career going. So, look, I think it was good as well for him. I remember he saying, it's nice to be able to not be interrupted, for a meal or something. But he also needed to keep in the public eye as much as he could for his career.
So when you're a model, you're very much the center of attention. When you're a mother, no one gives a shit about you.
That's right.
Particularly and most especially your children. I mean, in many ways, you're the center of the universe for them.
Yeah.
But they're not really interested in you as a person.
Yeah.
It seems like that was something that was really comfortable for you for 15, 20 years.
Yep. It's also why I've chose teaching, I think, as well, because children don't care what you look like. They don't care what size you are. They just want to know, are you there to care for me? Are you there to love me? And are you here to support me? And it's the most grounding experience. It's like the antithesis of modeling. And even though I always wanted to be a teacher as well before I was a model, but I've just come to love it even more, is just going in front of a room full of children and I'm just Ali, and they don't care if I've written a book or been on a cover of a magazine or who I'm married to or anything. It's, can you help me solve this math? You know, so yeah, motherhood and teaching's been a great saviour for me.
Enter the crone.
Yes.
The crone years, starting at around 45 for you, that's when you first got your first symptoms of peri, coincided with you moving back to Australia with Cam for work and for family. And like many women, you going into that phase of your life, I imagine moving back to Australia, you had started to have intense visibility with invisibility at the same time. Like that's kind of the age that a lot of us start to feel the gaze, the male gaze certainly move off us. You had a teenage daughter at the time. You had 2 teenagers and one younger child. I want to ask you about that, about the process of your children growing up when you're a mother. With boys, they go into the tunnel and they kind of leave you for a while.
Yeah.
And with girls, the gaze shifts onto them. So I want to ask you about boys first. My eldest son's 24. I've written a lot about this, and mothers weep when we tell them about what it's like. What was your process of River growing up and away from you?
Yeah, look, he's such an unusual boy too. He was very much a mama's boy for a long time. And when Bodhi was born, 6 years after he was born, once she started getting verbal and demanding my attention much more, I didn't necessarily know it as well at the time, but looking back, I already saw he's such a sensitive little kid. He already knew he had to take a step back from me even then, even as a 8-year-old. And I remember, he would say to her, I want to sit next to mum. I want to sit on her lap still. And so I would attempt to sort of still make time for him. But he was at school and I had Bodhi, being young and what have you. But I remember that shift and that change even back then. And then, he became his own little fellow in so many ways, even at an earlier age. Yeah, look, and he's always just been such a private kid. So it wasn't sort of this huge moment. It had been slowly sort of happening for a while. But then there is that moment. Like he was never a boy that came home and wanted to tell me about his day. Like he wasn't that boy. He always kept a lot of things to himself, unless he was cooking in the kitchen, because he's an amazing cook. If we would cook in the kitchen, then little bits would start to dribble out and he'd start to tell me about this and about that. But, I remember those moments of just feeling that even further stepping away where there wasn't anything coming. There was no news coming.
And the physical affection.
Yeah, the physical affection's gone. And when I would go to hug him and the body would stiffen.
Yeah, they'd recoil.
Oh, dang it. Yeah. And I would go to sort of just hold his hand and it'd go limp fish, in your hand. And, I'd be like, so tell me about this. Oh, yeah, it's fine. How are you feeling? Fine. Fine. That became his go-to. Fine. Everything's fine. And of course, I did the thing that I never wanted to do, and probably most mothers do. I remember when you used to sit on my lap and you used to hold my hand.
It's so disinterested in it.
Far out. It just makes them feel like shit, I think, saying that. It doesn't bring them any closer.
They feel guilty.
They do.
Yeah.
It's never like a thing that works, because I don't want him hugging me because he feels sad or guilty, but he's 22 and now he's so much more interested in me. He tells me things again, and I knew this was going to come round and I knew this was going to happen. Look, it's never going to be like when he was 6, of course, and it would be weird if it was, probably.
You've got to learn to let go of that in a way.
You do. But, he's much more appreciative of our relationship now. And I was lucky to have some friends that had older sons, and I would watch them go through it and talk to them about it and go, I know it's coming, but, oh, God, it's heartbreaking when it does.
And what about your relationship with your older kids' partners? coming and going. How have you found that, like watching them fall in love?
Yeah, look, my eldest has not fallen in love yet, so that's still yet to happen. My son has got a boyfriend who he met within 2 months of arriving in Australia, and they're still together. So this has been over 5 years, 5.5 years they've been together. And he actually was living with us for quite some time. So we had 6, we became a family of 6. So instead of empty nesting, we became more. And that was really fun. I actually really enjoyed having him in the house. So I haven't gone through heartbreak with them yet. And it's coming, I know. And my youngest is 16 and she's kind of dabbling with kind of boys every now and again, but nothing serious has kicked in for her at all. So that kind of thing is all ahead of me. But, you know, I love my son's boyfriend. He's a fabulous fellow and he's done so much for Riv in, you know, making him feel welcome and having an immediate set of friends when he arrived. And so he's just become part of the family. So
finding out that your son is gay, is that something you have to process, that what you thought his future might look like is different, or maybe it's not different, or does it just mean nothing in this day and age?
The only thing that really happened for me was my immediate sense of safety for him. That was the biggest thing that I noted in myself. All of a sudden I went, is he going to be safe in this world? And also my gaydar really popped up in when you listen to movies and you listen to TV shows, how they use the word as a slur to be gay. Like I started hearing that more. It had never sort of been a thing that I'd recognized, particularly, but those movies in the 80s, God, they said some horrific things back then about women and about homosexuality. So that became very much like, you know, the mama bear came out and I was like, fuck you, don't you dare come at me about anything about homophobia. So I became immediately much more aware of all that. But, yeah, we had a strong feeling for a long time he was gay and, you know, it was a very lovely experience and a very moving experience when he finally said, yes, I am. And, yeah, he wants to have kids, so I don't feel like I'm not going to be a grandma.
There are a lot of people who will have the experience of their child telling them they're gay or bi or queer in some way. What's the best thing to say in that moment when you might be shocked and you might have feelings about their safety or future grandchildren? What's the right thing to say in that moment?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing that they need to know is that I just absolutely love you. You know, they've got to be reassured. And I think that's the natural thing for most people, I hope. Nothing's been taken away from you as a parent. You know, it's hard enough. Look, it's so much better now for the LGBTQ community now, but there's still prejudice out there. There's still stuff that they've got to deal with.
Your fear for his safety is not unfounded.
No, exactly.
For everyone who thinks it's just Pride Month every month and everyone walks around with a rainbow flag, people still get called names in the street and threatened. It's not always easy.
Absolutely. And even, you know, it really even struck me that it became a thing for him to even have to say he was gay. You know, like even why do you even have to say it? He just prefers boys. Like who cares? Yeah. You know, who cares who you
Straight
love?
kids don't have to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even, you know, we said that from the get-go, you know, even when they were little, is like, you know, whoever you love is who you love. If you bring home a girl or a boy, it's who you love and we will love them too.
So you almost set the table not even knowing what was going to happen in the future.
But, you know, and this still makes me so sad. It's when he told us, he still added an apology.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Ellie, that makes me so upset.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Shows you we've got further to go as a culture.
And that's society for you.
Yeah.
That's still the society that still lived inside of him. That's still the messaging that he got.
Yeah.
No matter how open we were with it. And then I said to him, that is the last time you ever apologize for who you are. You never apologize for being gay, ever. So, And I'm going to cry. For my 50th birthday, that was the speech he made. He talked about what that meant to him. And I didn't know what it meant to him, but he got up in front of our whole family and friends and he wept as he told that story, how much it meant to him that I said that to him. And, and I didn't know because he was still the kid going, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. Oh. But it meant so much to him. And so you don't know how impactful your words are to someone. So it's be ready, as a parent for anything. And if your child comes to you and says that, just wrap them up with love and just go, what do you need? Is there anything you need? Do you want to talk about anything? And can't wait to meet your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or if you're trans, great. We love you. It's you, whatever you want to be. Hi there. You're listening to Ali Daddo on No Filter with Mia Friedman.
Girls, teenage girls. So it's interesting, around the time of menopause and perimenopause, if you've got a daughter, she'll often either be going through puberty and getting her first period, or, in a broader sense, you notice the gaze moving off you and onto her. And I know, or I believe, or I understand that for some women they feel jealous and resentful of that. I never felt that for a second. My daughter is 16. But I remember very distinctly the first time she was catcalled in the street and I was there and she thought they were calling out to me. I knew they weren't.
Yep.
And I felt scared for her and I didn't feel in any way jealous. But it's interesting and I don't even know if I have the words to process how that feels. What's been your experience of it?
Yeah, I felt very similar. I did not feel jealous at all. I felt immediately protective.
Yeah.
Particularly when I saw 50-year-old men looking at her as a 16-year-old. I was like,
correct.
Dude. And very openly. I was like, what are you doing? And I just wanted to sort of wrap her in a blanket and put her under my arm. And, it was... And I didn't feel quite ready for it in a lot of ways. I knew she's a gorgeous girl. I mean, they're both gorgeous. I mean, of course, I'm going to say that. They're mine. But yeah. And as a young girl, I think that's hard to prepare yourself for that kind of catcalling and that kind of looks. I remember even for myself as a young girl, when I started getting looks and older men or even any guy coming up, I didn't have the vocabulary or the boundary setting to really know what to do. And I was raised as the nice girl, and so I wasn't able to just say, you know what, step away, go away.
It was well before me too. We didn't have the words. There were no words for street harassment, sexual harassment.
Yep.
That's just the shit that happened.
Yep.
Not that was good, but it's wonderful that our daughters do have this vocabulary. But at the same time, it's interesting because often women our age will be saying to their daughters, do you really want to wear those shorts or do you really? And they say, stop slut shaming me or stop body shaming me. And I think it's more just a protectiveness of knowing the male gaze when at that age you still think you can control the male gaze.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to look hot, but only the people I want to look at me will look at me. And it's like, oh no, you don't understand.
Yep.
You can't control that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter went to a concert and she was sort of in the mosh pit area because they're cheaper seats or not even seats. And she had just a pair of jeans on, but she had this little kind of camisole top. And I was like, no way. And she's like, why? It looks really cute. I said, yeah, it looks cute. I said, you're in a mosh pit with lots of hands. No, you don't know where those hands are going to be grabbing. Nope, this is not. And she was, I think she heard, well, she certainly changed. She wasn't happy about it. But she said afterwards she saw girls in skirts that had they bent 2 inches, their underwear would show, and guys were putting their hands up their skirts and I said, honey, that's why. It's not about I'm trying to control how you dress. It's that. She goes, okay. She saw it and she got it. But
it's hard, isn't it, Ali, though? Because as feminists, we want to say, why should you change your behaviour to stop them doing something
100%.
That's actually illegal?
Yep.
I've really struggled with this a lot, and I sort of started saying to my daughter, it's fucked that it's like this. I will keep fighting until it's not. But while it still is, here are some of the things you have to do.
Yep, absolutely.
To protect yourself. And it's And of course we also, and I know people will say, what do you tell your sons? And of course you tell your sons the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't objectify women, don't, all of that.
Yeah.
And anyone that grows up in our houses know all of that.
Yeah.
But it's confronting and challenging, isn't
Yeah.
it, as a mother of teenagers, boys and girls?
It's so true. And there's so much about the education and the culture that we're yet to really address in so many ways. Like the school that my youngest went to, very well-meaning PDHP teacher for swim carnival, the girls had to wear a one-piece and a rash vest where the boys could wear Speedos. And my daughter said, why do I have to wear a rash vest? And he said, because it's hard for the boys. It's too, they lose their concentration if you're in your swimsuit, right?
Wow.
And this was the messaging. And I was like, actually, no. No. You need to be talking to the boys.
Yeah.
And the girls get to wear what they want.
Yeah.
And why are we not addressing the boys? It was like already that messaging, and this was like sort of 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got to make sure
You're responsible.
You're responsible for the boys not
But then
being
how is that
the
different from what we say to our daughters?
I know.
Put on some pants.
Yeah.
I don't know if your daughters wear those, the new bikinis with the G-string thing. I'm like, it's
a lot of butt
It's
cheek.
a lot. And it's at a time when my bottom seems to have become square, weirdly. And it's like, it's so interesting because you have such pride and love and joy for your child.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's that watching them be objectified, come into a world and be objectified is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think
not
that's
from a jealousy point of view, but from
no. That's not going to change for such a long time, if at all.
The journal entry that you wrote, and in your book, you write a lot about feeling fat and feeling ugly, and I'm so glad that you do, because there'll be people that'll say you've got pretty privilege, you've got skinny privilege, you've got white privilege, you've got all of this, and if Alison feels bad about her body, it's almost like if Alison feels bad, no wonder we all feel bad. Like you're the canary down the mine shaft. So we're all swimming in the same soup that tells us that J-Lo is how we're meant to look.
Yes, exactly.
Or, these ageless celebrities like Jennifer Aniston who all seem to celebrate these milestone birthdays by posing almost naked. And Nicole Kidman, and everyone's like, isn't that progress? A 56-year-old woman in a miniskirt on the cover of Vanity Fair. And it's like, but that's not progress. Mm-hmm. It would be progress if she had a muffin top and a square bottom. Yeah.
That's right. Can we see the square bottom?
Square bottom.
That's right. That is so true. And look, I was worried. It was one of the things I was really concerned about with the book. I'm like, who's actually going to want to pick it up? Because in the sense of like, they're going to go, oh, well, what does she know about menopause? She's a model and she has all those privileges. And so I was really worried about that. And I even addressed the fact that it's like at 52, I'm still seeing, 24-year-olds model clothes for me or, model makeup and anti-aging stuff. And it's like, but I was that girl modeling stuff for older women. So now I'm on the flip side of it. I'm going, well, can we get like the 50-year-old models modeling stuff for us and showing us the beauty of age and celebrating that? Like it's not actually a disease to grow old. It's a fucking privilege. But we don't have that culture. So, but it's so true. Like, the J-Los of the world, and God love them. You go, girl, you're fabulous, you're gorgeous, but it's like we're still being compared to that. That's still the level that we're meant to get to somehow or another. Unfortunately, we all don't have $25 million and personal trainers and all of that to do it with, but
and the surgery and the, all of that stuff.
Yep.
Because that is their job and they are paid for the way they look.
Yep. Yeah. And I think you're the same with me. I have nothing against surgery. I have nothing against it. And I think if it makes you feel better, go down that path. You go. But don't pretend that you haven't had it done.
And also, can we please see some different options?
Yes.
So can we also see the women who haven't? I know that someone I follow on Instagram is Paulina Poritskova, who is a model in the 80s.
Yep.
And she hasn't had any work done. And she pointed out she says it all the time. And she says, I don't say it to judge the people who have or to say I'm somehow better. I say it to tell people there are different options.
Yes,
It's not like I have to look like J-Lo at that age or I'm a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still what we've internalized.
Yep.
And even knowing that you should feel good about your body doesn't mean that you do.
Yeah. And also that there's something wrong with us if we don't love our bodies.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's too much pressure. And all this idea
And then you lose twice because you don't look like J-Lo and you're not happy about it.
And that's bad.
Yeah.
So I can't stand that. Like, I mean, look, of course the goal would be if you can love every inch of yourself, that's the goal. That's fabulous. If you're there, I think that's so good. Though it's still this constant media pressure and social pressure too that you read all this time. Love yourself, love this, love that. It's like, what if I don't? Is that okay if I don't? You know, and have you got to love yourself first before someone else will love you? Well, that's a bit of a setup. Like, I don't like that at all. I think that's really unfair. And telling that to young girls as well. It's like, yes, if you can, it's great. But, you know, it sort of sets you up for failure in so many ways if you can't get there.
Is it true that you were really asked if you're pregnant?
Yes. And not just once.
That wasn't in the
times.
brochure. Really, multiple times.
Multiple times. How far along are you? And yeah, like I said, I just got to the point where I kind of took some cruel manner of thought and went, I'm just fat. Because I just wanted to see their faces sometimes. And so at first I was like, oh, look, I'm not pregnant. And then it kept on going and going. And I was just like, I'm just fat. It's just what I am. I'm just fat. And just the look in their faces. But the one woman at the post office who was literally trying to convince me, no, you're not, you're pregnant. I'm like, I think I would know. And it was so weird how I carried that fat, like I carry it like I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, sure as hell, the bum grew, the thighs grew, the back fat grew, but I just carried it all out front.
Yeah.
Like
that's
I was pregnant
a menopausal thing. I remember being a kid and seeing older women and asking my mum if they were pregnant, but they'd have grey hair, so I'd be confused. And she'd be like, no. And I'd be like, but I swear, because it's like, it looks like a baby.
Absolutely. Karmically, I remember my sisters and I teasing my mother, patting her belly, going, oh, you got a tummy and your baby in there, Mum. No, darling, no. Oh, and we'd tease her mercilessly. Yeah, look what happened to me.
Who's laughing now?
Who's laughing now? And it's me and my other sister. We had the exact same body shape. We just look at each other, go, we have become our mother.
Apples.
We have become our
apple
mother.
shapes. It's fantastic. The emotional roller coaster and physical roller coaster of being in your 40s and perimenopause impacts on everyone in your family. And what I recognised reading your book was something that I felt in mine, which is that you almost become the punchline in your family in some ways, not in a mean way, but it's like, because it goes on for so long, can go on for years, it's like everyone in the family rolls their eyes a bit about mum. And that can be really hard.
Yeah, like every time we would go to do something, oh, well, we've got to wait for mum. Can mum do this? Is that going to be too hard for mum? And I just hated that.
Like, mum's crying again.
Right?
Yeah, mum's crying again.
Yeah, what's mum up to? Can mum do this? Is mum okay for this? Is
that from physical, being physically?
Yeah, physically not able to do things where my fitness level and, the pains I had in the joints and I just had I wasn't sleeping. So it's like I had just no energy level and no energy level to even want to exercise anyway. And I felt angry about having to need to exercise. So I was like, I don't want to. I know it's good for me, but I don't want to. I did a lot of the time I didn't want to help myself. And that was part of that depression that I was in too, or the depressive episode. And so the point that I finally got to, Cam kept saying, what can I do? What do you need? Like, how can I help you? And it was really understanding that moment when I said, I just need you to see me not as broken.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
I just need you to see me as me, but just going through something that I'm going to be okay with. And just treat me the same, not as something that you need to fix.
Or pity.
That was what I needed from him. And once he understood that, it was so much better. It was so much better. It was like, tell me I'm strong. Tell me I can get through this. Tell me those bits, Don't tell me poor you. Yeah, we won't do that. Oh, well, I was like, and I could see it in his eyes, when he'd look at me like, oh, God, she's just crying again,
Yeah.
So, that really helped getting to that point.
How have you found, now that your kids are pretty much grown, 2 of them are in their 20s, 1 is 16, your work is pretty done now. How are you reforming your identity in terms of who you are? Because you say for so long you were moulded around Cam's work, the children. That's a really, really long time.
Yeah. And it's like my favourite job is no longer a job that I sort of can do.
You've been made redundant.
I've been made redundant. And I still find it hard. I still really find it hard. As I said, I loved my years of the kids when they were younger, and, I loved being a stay-at-home mum. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. So I'm still working through that phase, really. But at the same time, because I'm feeling so much more energy and I'm feeling so much more like I do feel like this second lease on life.
Because you're through the other side of menopause.
Because I'm through the other side, that I'm going, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm not that interested in going to sort of like the parent meetings. And whereas I used to be like, I had them in my calendar and I would show up for everything. Now I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go to this and, do all that stuff that I used to do. And when the kids would go out, on a Saturday or a Friday night, now I'm like, oh, that's good. I'm actually excited for that now, rather than feeling like, oh, I'm so sad that they're not at home having dinner with me. So I'm feeling the shift, which is really, really, really good. And I feel so grateful for that, because for a long time I thought, I'm just going to be in mourning for the rest of my life.
Grief.
Yeah, it
Pining.
really felt like that, like super. And I felt like it was important to say that and to feel all of that too, that I was in mourning. And some parents would look at me and go, really? I couldn't wait till my kids left the house. And I was like, yeah, I've just have never felt like that.
Yeah.
I kept on saying to them, you can stay with me forever.
Same. I was devastated when Luca moved out.
Yep, absolutely. So, now I just want them to make sure they stay close when they have grandchildren. That's my next phase is grandmotherhood.
The grief of knowing that your fertile years are ending, it's a complex thing to try to explain to someone, isn't it? Because it's not necessarily that you want to have more children. It's more that society is basically telling you to get in the bin.
Yep.
Feels like the main character energy that you might have had is kind of like, right, well, your time's over now. Please step to the side.
Yeah.
The young people are taking centre stage.
Yeah.
How have you worked that out for yourself?
I had a lot of tears about that. And talking to Cam about that, he was so confused, because he knew we weren't having any more children, but I just didn't want that choice taken from me. I just didn't want that. I was like, who says you can take my fertility? Like, why is this going away from me? Like, what if I really do want kids at 55 or, and I didn't, of course, and I don't. But at the same time, it felt really cruel that choice was taken from me. It's not taken from a man. They can have children for many, 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 many years.
No one pulls the plug on them and says, right, that's finished.
Yeah. But it was sort of reading more about perimenopause and menopause, and that's why I was like, why is this happening? What's the why? Like, there's a whole medical thing, and I understand that, but it's like, why is this happening? And for me, it was understanding. It's like, it's because the focus needs to be on you now. Your focus has been so outside for so long with Cam and the kids and motherhood and work and whatever. And so once that is actually physically taken from you, the idea that you can be fertile, it's like, well, what's left? What's left is me. It's me at the end of the day. So how am I going to nurture myself now? I've nurtured the kids. They really no longer need me in that way. It's me. Okay. And so that kind of 180 looking towards myself was actually really powerful. So it was.
And how are you nurturing you?
There's nothing like grandiose, but it's all the little things. Like, it's finally spending money on the massages. It's finally spending money on the physio that I sort of need to fix up, the split stomach muscles from birthing the babies and the pelvis that's out of whack, that I would just keep going. It's like, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Now it's like lining up those things and really taking good physical care for the first time, I feel like, in a long time. And just eating better and just coming home and going, I'm just going to read my book in my room for a bit with a cup of tea and closing the door with my kids in the house. Like, I would never have done that. And it's so stupid and so small, but
what would you have been doing? Making them dinner?
I would have been out there chatting and making sure they've got everything and loving spending time with them, just being around them. But now it's like me removing myself from them, not them removing themselves from me.
So it's almost like when society tells us we're not the main character anymore, it almost frees us to actually be the main character in our own lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You kind of use those resources in a different way. You're applying them in different places. So, it's a good thing.
I so related to that idea of reclaiming time for yourself. And it's interesting, we talked a lot in the interview that you heard obviously about motherhood and her kids and things like weight and body. But what we didn't talk about is how this phase of her life has changed her relationship, because being married to the same person for, I think they've been together almost 30 years with so many ups and downs. And there's a part of her book where she's written so beautifully about how they had to navigate sex in these last few years. Here's a little excerpt of it. You can listen to it now if you're a Mamamia subscriber, and there's a link to it in the show notes.
Journal entry. I'm worried. I've lost all desire for sex. I don't know what to do. Is there a pill to get your libido back? Is there some hideous herbal drink that will make me want to rip my husband's clothes off and ravish him? How do I get that desire back? I know Cam has said that without sex he won't stay. Panicked feelings arise in me as I think about him leaving because I can't be physically intimate with him.
This episode of No Filter was produced by Gia Moylan, and the executive producer is Eliza Ratliff, who's on her honeymoon.